Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping in to an Oatmeal Stout from Firestone Walker. This one is called Velvet Merkin, and it has been bourbon barrel aged, clocks in at 7.8% ABV. Firestone Walker is, of course, based in Paso Robles, California. So I've been fortunate enough in the last half a year to finally start getting my hands on Firestone Walker through Tavour. I had been seeing a ton of people's posts on Tap, on Instagram, comments on my YouTube channel, and seeing people talk about this company. So I've been very fortunate to have finally snagged about 6 or 7 of their beers, and they've all been fantastic. So I have very high hopes. I have not had an oatmeal stout in a while, and a bourbon barrel aged one at that. So I'm really keen to get this cracked, poured right in. It's worth noting this is a 2018 vintage, so this has been aged. Let's get this poured right in the glass. Oh yeah, that's a nice looking stout right there. Give it a chance to form a head. Try to get a little more aggressive with that. Yeah, that did a pretty good job. Okay. Visually, this is pitch black. It's not an imperial, but it's a very, very dark stout. A lot of very deeply, darkly roasted malts in there. In terms of the head, did a great job. I expect that's going to settle down reasonably quickly, then have a good bit of cling. It is an oatmeal stout after all. We've talked about it. That is the #1 best ingredient with which to brew to aid with head retention and creation. So let's give it a sniff. Oh yeah, that smells really nice. So while the aroma on this one didn't jump out at me from the glass, from a couple of feet away, getting right up on it, the bourbon really does come through, as does the slight sweetness to it. That's very common with oatmeal stouts. It's not a milk stout, but an oatmeal stout. They tend to be a little less oppressive than their non-oatmeal counterparts. They can have a little hint of sweetness, even with no lactose in the beer at all. That's kind of one of their character traits, and this smells great. There's that little sweetness on the nose and that bourbon, and it pairs very well. You can also smell the malt. It smells roasty underneath, but dominant is kind of getting that sweetness mixed with bourbon. A little bit of a vanilla aroma in there as well. I'm sure that's from the bourbon barrels. Anyway, had to settle down nicely. Got a nice creamy pad floating on top. Let's jump right in. Oh yeah. Oh, that's quite nice. Oh yeah. Wow. This is quite complex. Layers and layers and layers are happening here. So first thing I thought when I got in my mouth, started to agitate. As expected, there's a good bit of resistance to the mouthfeel, and it does get quite creamy. It's an oatmeal stout after all. As I swallowed, I wasn't paying that much attention to the body because I was noticing how there was this really nice rush of sweetness and kind of bourbon essence that burst out. And then it just started stacking flavors. They just started popping one after the next. Very clearly was vanilla. Then very clearly behind that was a bit of a kind of a caramelly toffee note. Then I got pure roasted malted barley. Behind that, I started getting coffee notes. And now it's all kind of mixing together. This is a really big beer. Not only are these flavors kind of stepping in one at a time, the whole thing is intensifying while this is happening. It's really, really nice. Very well put together, very multi-layered, very multifaceted, and quite complex. This is among the most complex oatmeal stouts I think I've ever had. Normally, I drink them, I enjoy them, but this just has so many different tiers to it. It's really, really quite enjoyable to drink. I'm going to jump in and see what I can pick out on this body, think a bit on the finish, see what else I might have missed on first sip here. Solid medium body. That sweetness, that vanilla, that bourbon. Now that roasty malt starting to climb in. Caramel, toffee. It's intensifying. Roasty is turning into earthy. And now that's imparting coffee coming through. Chocolate undercurrents. And it's all mixing. It's almost like dessert beer without it being in milk form, like a milk stout. It's really, really nice, really complex, and the way the flavors are interplaying is really, really incredible. Absolutely fantastic beer. Truly delicious. I am a big, big fan. The finish on this, it's maybe not quite as long as I expected for how intense and multifaceted these flavors are, and especially with the bourbon barrel aged beer, but make no mistake, this is a really, really well done oatmeal stout. With the barrel aging, the whole 9 yards, the malt bill they chose, it's really well put together. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, I will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. Okay, now that we've gotten to enjoy this delicious beer, we're going to get it ranked. This is Firestone Walker's Velvet Merkin 2018 release. This is an oatmeal stout that's been bourbon barrel aged, 7.8% ABV, and Firestone Walker is based in Paso Robles, California. So starting with the aroma. The aroma on this beer was nice. It smelled very good, but surprisingly for a barrel aged beer and a reasonably high ABV on a standard stout at that, the aroma wasn't super pungent. You really had to get right up on it, but when you did, what you could pick up out of the glass was really, really nice. It had classic overtones of bourbon, some kind of caramelly undertones, a little bit of vanilla, and you could smell a little bit of sweetness and some of that underlying roasty malt edge. It smelled nice. Overall, though, just average in terms of intensity and profile. 5 for the aroma. For the taste was absolutely fantastic. The aroma didn't give me that much to go on. It was kind of surprised when I got it in my mouth. I didn't expect the flavor intensity. I should have. It's barrel aged, but typically aroma and taste, at least in terms of intensity, are going to go a little bit hand in hand. That was not the case here. This was very, very multi-layered, multifaceted, and quite complex. The staggering and the way that the flavors kind of popped in one by one before they started to meld was really quite nice, and it had a lot of different tiers of flavor. Really, really well put together, really, really excellent flavor profile that came through. Slight booziness, slight suggestion of sweetness. You had really nice roasty malt intensity, caramel, toffee, vanilla. It was all in there. Taste does get a 10 out of 10. For the body, this had a real breadth to it for just a standard stout. Absolutely, for me, a 10 out of 10. Mouthfeel, same story here. It had a good bit of resistance, which you expect in an oatmeal stout. And this one was very creamy, very velvety when you agitate it across the palate. That's exactly what I expect. It gets a 10 out of 10. For the finish. Now, the finish was kind of surprising, and this almost goes more in the direction that the aroma did. It was really just high end of average here. There was a lot of flavor interplay, a lot of complexity, and a fair bit of intensity as you were drinking it, but it really didn't get that long of a push out on the finish. The finish was nice and wet and round to the end, but it really just didn't last as long for the intensity of flavors I got while I was initially sipping on it, and really just high end of average here. It gets a 6 out of 10. For the head and retention, classic oatmeal stout. That was perfection. It gets a 10 out of 10. For the appearance, this was basically pitch black and very, very dark. Any stout, 7.8. That's pretty high for a standard stout, but as expected, pitch black. It does get a 10 out of 10. For the balance of flavors in this beer was exquisite, honestly. I really didn't expect the multi-layers of complexity and how they all worked together. They all had their own voice. They all kind of popped in one after the next. Then they all just kind of co-mingled and made just this beautiful, beautiful sensory experience for the taste buds. Balance, perfect. 10 out of 10. Feeling of the intangible, subjectively, I loved it. I'm a massive fan of all stouts. Oatmeal stouts are always a favorite. A well-crafted bourbon barrel is all the better. Subjectively, 10 out of 10 for me. Finally, is an example of the style. Overall, this beer did very well. It lost some points in a couple categories, but in the grand scheme of things, they don't really impact what this is in terms of a representative of its style. And I think it does deserve full points here. Example of a style, 10 out of 10, which brings the total score on Firestone Walker's Velvet Merkin 2018 release to a 91 out of 100. So again, we're looking at yet another top tier beer here from Firestone Walker. If you get a chance and you find them and you haven't tried them out yet, I've had about 6, 7, 8 beers from them now, and they have all been absolute top tier, well worth your time to seek. Folks, That's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live to YouTube, just click that notification bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Till next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.